News reporter Tim Hastings interviewed Johnston City native Karin Wargel about her new book, Don't Touch That Box. The regular edition of Arrow News podcast included a clip from that interview. Stay tuned to this extra edition of the Arrow for the rest of that discussion. Ms. Wargel will be signing copies of her book at Andreessen's Thursday, September 7th from 10 to 3. Don't Touch That Box is the product of 30 years of research by Mrs. Wargel into the hidden treasures and sometimes dark secrets of her highly successful and talented family. Now, the full interview.
Who owned this box?
So this was Mr. Faulkner, Floyd.
Okay.
Laura was my aunt.
Okay.
Died in childbirth.
Okay.
And horribly, my mother was 14 at the time, and they thought it was going to be a normal childbirth, so my grandma and grandpa said, you go down there and sit with Laura. Of course, it turned out my mother was traumatized. The doctor was sitting in the floor drunk, didn't do anything. That's all I'm telling my book. And blood was everywhere. It was horrible. And my mother, when my grandma and grandpa came down to see the new baby, she ran out to meet them. Laura died. My grandma fainted in the field. And so anyway, her husband was Floyd, and he's the one that had the box. His parents lived in that house that we owned on the river. And he told his family, don't anybody ever touch that box. Of course, after he died, they couldn't wait to see what was in the box.
And Floyd was your uncle by marriage.
Yes.
He married your aunt.
Married Laura, yes.
Okay, but then she died early,
Yes.
and your uncle started collecting this box, or
He already had it, I
Kinda
guess. Had it
going.
from when they dated and when they were married and everything.
Well, when did you first find out about the box?
It would have been 15 years ago when those people stopped. The ladies stopped
you're
by our
kidding.
house.
So
Yeah.
very recent.
Yes,
and you're
yes,
very
yes.
recently.
And then when he died, they opened the box. It was all Laura stuff in there. And wouldn't it be wonderful to have all that stuff?
Well,
and then,
but do you?
No.
No.
But there was a man. So Floyd got married again and had a few children. I'm not sure how many. And one of his children lived down the road from Bay City.
Okay.
And I knew that. And my husband and I stopped by there to see about the book. I had questions about Floyd. And he had pictures. And here's a picture of Laura. And here's a picture of... And he had all these pictures of my aunt still.
Okay.
That it was just... she must have been a wonderful person.
Okay. And through this uncle, and he's an uncle by marriage.
Yes.
And his first wife, who was your aunt biologically,
Yes.
died young, so you never met her. But you've been able to sort of capsulize your life history and even some philosophy through this uncle by marriage.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And how is it that captivated your heart so much?
From my mother. My mother told me these stories. She told me every story. Anything, she just talks constantly. And as the girl, maybe all children don't enjoy that, but I just sucked it all up. I loved every bit of every story that she ever told me.
Now, where was your mother in the birth order compared to Laura?
My mother was sixth. Laura was fourth.
So Laura was older. How old was your mom when Laura died?
14.
14.
When she was there in that house to keep her company, she was only 14.
She was in the home when the child was born and Laura passed.
They lived, I have a picture of the room where she died. They rented a room. This happened a lot this was Pope County.
Okay.
And a lot of the people started out poor. And so Laura and Floyd rented a room from his brother, who was renting the whole house. And then they rented a room from him. And Laura's sister-in-law came and told Mom, Laura when she was going through it. Laura, she would come and hold her hand. So my mother was right there in the room the whole time, and she said, I kept wondering, why doesn't that doctor do something? And here he was sitting drunk and
Oh dear. Oh
on the
dear.
wall.
Mm.
And Mom didn't know to do anything, you know.
Did your mother know about this box?
No,
Okay.
she did not. No.
Because I'm guessing she had passed before you even knew about the
Yes,
box.
yes.
Okay. Well, now, pardon my ignorance and my forgetfulness. Was there anything in the box when you finally found it and opened it?
But I didn't have the box. I never
no.
saw the box. It's
Ever?
just what those sisters
Oh.
told me about it.
So you've never seen it,
Never seen
and
it.
we don't know if it even exists today?
No.
Or
And
we just-
Danny,
okay.
Floyd's son by his second wife, like I said, he had pictures of Laura,
Okay.
but you know, I can't remember I don't remember him showing me anything else, because if he did, surely I would have remembered it and written about it.
And the title of your book, Don't Touch That Box, those were the words of your Uncle Floyd. Is that no? Or
Yes,
he's
Uncle
the one who
Floyd
said,
told his kids, and
Mhm.
one of his children was Danny, who lived down the road, and his two daughters were the ladies that stopped by our house on the river and
Yes.
said,
Yes.
could we look in the house? So they knew, they had heard all this all their lives. They weren't supposed to touch that box.
Oh, but they were looking for it? Do you think when they came and knocked on your door, that's...
No, they had already had it, because he had already died.
Oh,
And so,
okay.
you know, it makes you wonder what they did with all the things that were in that box. Why didn't I ask about that?
How is it that you built a whole story around a box you've never seen? Forgive me for...
Yes, well, that is true, because that's just one small part of
Okay.
the book,
But it's,
you know.
sure.
But it's so
Sure.
typical of everything that happened
Okay.
to me. Like I said, when I listened to it, you know, Mom would tell me stories about her brother who died in this horrible car accident, burned up actually in it, and he couldn't get the door open because he was driving a semi-car carrier. But there he is in there burning, and he thinks to throw his billfold out the window so his wife would have money.
Oh, no way.
And it's just one story after another like that to me.
I'm guessing the box represents maybe family secrets, or because this man, your Uncle Floyd, had letters from Laura,
Yes, I'm
memorabilia.
sure. Well, I don't know.
Okay. But somehow no one was to touch it. It was a part of his life.
Yes.
And I'm guessing now that symbolizes your desire to find out about your family.
Yes.
The
That's good.
Oh, okay.
There's so much more to his story that I included in there.
Homer's story.
His mourning and all of that.
Okay. And I think from what I've read, your book deals a lot with your grandfather.
Yes.
Paul, and how do you pronounce his?
Schultatus,
who was Laura's dad.
Yes.
And Homer's father-in-law. Or no?
Floyd.
Yes. sorry, Floyd.
Yeah.
Floyd. But would you say that Paul is sort of the theme of your book?
Yes, and I tried to. I have one out of these 12 children. I have one aunt left. My Aunt Pauline is the only one left.
12 kids.
And she is 83. And she helped me throughout this whole thing.
Great.
And she would say, "Oh, you got to put this. You got to put this in." And then I'd say, "Okay." And I'd say, "Oh, I got to put this." There were other horrible stories also, and she'd say, "No, you can't put that in."
Oh.
And I'd say, "Oh, okay." But
let's
yes.
quickly change to tell me the happiest story in the family, okay?
The happiest story in the family. Oh my goodness.
Greatest joy or this miracle.
Oh, I haven't thought along those lines.
Okay.
What would be one of the best stories? Well, they were all so successful. They were very successful people.
Okay.
And long-lived people. An aunt just died last year at 96. And my grandma lived to be 100 and never lost a bit of her mind.
Okay.
And she told me a lot of stories too.
Okay.
And she would be we'd sit. I remember sitting at our little kitchen table, and here she is, like 90 something years old, and she'd be telling me about when she was in grade school and everything that happened.
Oh, where did your where were you born, and where were your grandparents living when you were born
My
or
My
reared?
great grandfather, Paul's father, came from Germany and settled in St. Louis. There was a German congregation there.
Sure.
And then I was born in Johnson City.
Okay. Okay.
And he moved around. My grandpa was in vaudeville. You know vaudeville?
Kind of. I mean, Red Skelton or the
Exactly.
Marx Brothers.
Everybody that started in movies and silent movies almost came from vaudeville.
Okay.
And he was an actor on the stage. He didn't dance
Your
or sing.
grandfather.
My grandfather
Who
was
you
Paul.
knew. Who you knew.
Yes.
Where
And I
did-
didn't know that. I think my mom thought it was not a great thing if you were in vaudeville.
Okay.
So I didn't know that till I was an adult. She didn't tell me that story.
Okay.
But yes, and he traveled. These vaudeville people travel all over the United States and Canada. And
Yes.
there were stages, theaters,
Yes.
theaters,
Yes.
and that was a happy thing, and he
Oh,
enjoyed
that's
that. But he got sick.
Mm.
I think we're not sure what he had. Not typhoid, but he had something the doctor said, you got to slow down.
Mm.
Plus, when he was a young boy, like in high school, he was hanging with the wrong crowd. He said, and his mother sent him from St. Louis to Coderville to a farm of his cousins, and he lived there, and he liked that farming.
Okay.
And so then he got an inheritance from all these important people in Germany, bought this farm, settled down there. And who lived across the road in the farm across the road? My grandma.
Oh. Okay.
And that's how he met them.
And where was that farm located?
Coderville.
Coulterville. Okay.
And we went there all the time. He named everything. The Coderville farm was Meadow Farm. So we went to, and that's what the kids said. They never said, let's go to the farm in Coderville. They always said, well, at Meadow Farm this, at Meadow Farm that. Then then their house burned down. And that's another story.
While they were raising your
All these
mother
kids,
and
yes.
the 12 children.
And Mom remembered that in detail. My mother told the best stories.
Okay,
She
okay.
even said, when I got back and that my house was all gone, they'd been to school, and all the big kids had already gone home to see what was going on, but she was one of the younger kids. And she said, I went to the tree and I put my arm up on that tree and cried, and I looked down and my tears were dropping in my dusty shoes, making a spot. She remembered all those little details.
My goodness.
So anyway, then this was depression. This was 32. And my grandpa I cannot stress how brilliant my grandfather was. And my Aunt Pauline, I think, got a little upset with me because there wasn't enough in there about her mother.
Oh, okay.
But the book is about my grandpa.
I'm sure. Paul.
I'm sorry, but that's what it was.
Okay.
So anyway, he had contacted what's the organization that repossessed homes and farms during the government,
Oh,
during
dear.
the Depression. Anyway, and he had contacted them about this farm in Polk County. And then when he found out that, then later he got a letter, and he was so excited. And he told one of the baby uncles that wasn't there at the time, he told this uncle the story that he opened that letter and they had halved the price.
Oh,
And so he bought it.
Miracle. Now, you spent most of your childhood in Johnston City?
All of it.
All of it. And during your childhood, where were your grandparents living?
Okay, so after they lived in Polk County all this time, by the time my grandpa, this was in 1950, so he would have been 68 years old. He said, I've had enough of this cold. And he hopped on a train and went to Florida. First he went to Miami. He didn't like Miami. No, it was a bus. Maybe it was a bus.
Okay.
And then he got on the bus again and went to West Palm Beach.
Now, was he still rearing children at this time?
Yes, they still had, my Aunt Pauline was she was born in 39, 49. So she was like in junior high,
Okay.
12 or something like that.
But not most had gone
Yes,
before he
yes.
started
Yes.
looking
Like
at Florida.
I said,
Okay.
he was 68. What did I say? 68 or something like that. Anyway, then he went to West Palm Beach. He liked West Palm Beach. He rented a room and then told them, okay, come on down. I've got us a place to live.
Sounds good to me.
And they got in the car, packed what they could in the car, and that's all they took.
Oh my.
And left everything else. And my grandpa, I have a friend in Polk County that told me one time, somebody asked him, what did Mr. Schultatus do for a living? Where did he get his money? But my grandpa always had money. So when they sold Meadow Farm in Coderville, they didn't sell it. He bought the farm in Polk County without selling the farm in Meadow Farm. When he moved to Florida, he didn't sell Roseville Ranchlet. I forgot to tell you.
It was called
The farm in Polk County was Roseville Ranchlet.
Rosevale.
Rosevale. Yes. And you could even address, I have letters addressed to Paul Schultatus, Roseville Ranchlet, New Liberty, Illinois, and they knew where to take it. So anyway, they moved down there, didn't sell the farm at Polk County. So, how does he have all this money? That's the thing. Where'd he get all this money?
Yeah.
But he was so busy all the time. He farmed. He read constantly. He was still writing, selling articles.
No kidding.
He wrote for magazines, Saturday Evening Post.
Oh my goodness.
Yes, and I have a huge book. I don't have the original book. I'm not sure who has that, but my uncle made copies for everybody.
Wonderful.
And it has in there where he wrote the date that he would send to a magazine, what it was about. The book even has, he would write little sketches of what he was going to write stories about.
Oh my goodness.
One of his publishers told him, you need to modernize a little bit. You've got to get more modern. And his sketches, I noticed, started being about spaceships, aliens, and mermaids. So he was modernizing his stories to get them published.
Well, what was he writing about before?
The one I would like to know that, and my Aunt Pauline always talked about, was Papa Stickelstein's cat. But I don't know what it was about. Nobody knows what it was about. And we don't have any completed stories. For one thing, remember, a lot of it burned in the fire. And I just can imagine his devastation. And then I don't know what happened to the ones in Florida.
Say the name of the story again.
Papa Stickelstein's cat.
So we all need to start looking.
I have looked.
Oh dear.
I have looked.
Even through like archives of Saturday Evening Post.
No. But thank you.
But you have. But you're
Googled
fairly certain that he was published in Saturday Evening Post under the name.
Yes,
Paul.
because I have a paper that says, please enclose find your check for $20.
Ooh, I love
Stickelstein's.
Do you have any of his published writings?
No.
Nothing.
Just his.
Oh my.
Just
goodness.
his synopses that were in his book. No, nothing.
And he doesn't show up in Google. You've Googled him.
I have Googled him.
Oh my goodness! And he doesn't show up.
No, and
you have a second book to write now. The Papa Stickelstein's cat.
That's what my aunt said. I said, Pauline, I'm not going through this again. But shoot, I lost my train of thought again. Oh, I know if we had any copies, we would have them because my uncle, one of my uncles that was from Florida, he was one of the younger ones that, all the ones from Polk County married up here, married Polk County boys. Then after the group moved to Florida, the younger people married people from down there and lived down there.
Right.
So he did a lot of copying. They took German letters to this institute in Miami that translated and all that. So he would have made copies. If there was anything, we would have a copy of it. I know. They were very good about that.
Yes.
You can tell I enjoyed writing this book.
Good. Well, Karin, you had, and I saw in the literature about the book that you talk about mental illness in the family. And is that something that your grandfather Paul suffered from?
No, that's what's weird.
Okay.
It skipped from his father skipped his generation.
Okay.
Because, but, keep this in mind.
Sure.
All the research I did, and you've probably heard of this too, creative people,
Mm-hmm.
creative, intelligent people
Yes.
correlate with mental illness.
Okay.
Like, I had a long list in there. You know, Van Gogh committed suicide. Ernest Hemingway, like 2 of his children committed suicide.
Yes.
So writers, artists.
Mm-hmm.
So, but somehow it skipped
Yes.
that. But and I knew both of the mentally ill people. I knew them well,
Okay.
and it's just so devastating that they are robbed. They were my Aunt Pauline, one of them, my Uncle Quentin, was next to her in birth. And she said, Karen, I would sit with a dictionary and give him words out of that dictionary to spell, and he never missed one. He was so smart and so talented.
Who was this? Who
Quentin.
was an uncle?
Yes, one of my mother's baby brothers.
And he suffered from mental illness and brilliant.
Yes.
He was just brilliant.
And that's another, I'm sorry, but it's
That's
another
okay.
sad story.
That's okay.
And then my aunt, that was schizophrenic, was 2 years older than my mother. So she was from the top half.
Okay.
And I interviewed her until she died. And I was an adult then. I was already working on this book. I've been working on this book for 30 years.
30. Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Congratulations. That's oh,
Thank you.
That's rare, I think, for someone to pursue something for that long.
Oh, yeah.
And finish it.
Well, she was. People may think it was crass and crude for me to include that, but I wrote about my interviews with her to show how sick she was.
Yes.
And that it is not a game people play.
Sure.
It's their mind, and it's not fair, and they can't help it, and I don't know how else to stress this.
Well, go ahead, because for those of us who are living, who struggle with we all struggle with something, but what takeaways do you have for us that we should do when we're in a crisis, a mental illness crisis? What should I do? What should I do?
Well,
from your experience?
You can't do it alone.
Okay.
You have to have help. You can have therapy, or if you're a religious person, and I am a religious person, and I tell everybody, I just got through telling you, I've had 2 other names in there between there.
Right.
So I've had a lot of trauma in my life.
Okay.
And I could never have gotten through that if I didn't have faith, if I didn't have help. I've never walked a day alone in my life.
Okay.
And I firmly believe that. But I'm not a Christian that goes out preaching and all that. Mine is all in me. It's all I need, what I've got.
Okay.
And so, if you have faith, you can use that. If not, get some help.
Tell me about some of the helpers in your life, if you don't mind.
I've had some therapists. I've had some psychiatrists. Like I said, I've been through some trauma.
Okay.
And meds.
Do you recommend?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. All right.
To some point.
Okay.
You
You've got to make the phone call, right?
Search around and find what you can, because it gets to the point where you cannot do it alone. You just can't.
Okay.
That's when people jump off bridges.
Okay. Well,
and people say, this is what I'm so sick of this. Why do they do that? They have the whole world go, look how wealthy they are. They got this good job. Blah, blah. Why do they do that? It has nothing to do, mental illness, depression, anxiety, has nothing to do with those external factors going on in your life. It's your mind working and ignoring all those other things.
Okay.
And it finally gets to the point you think, I can't do this another day.
Your aunt with schizophrenia. Did she find help? Did she reach out?
No.
Okay.
She spent her life, every once in a while, it's in the story, they would release her. And she would be kind of normal, but it wouldn't last.
Okay.
And she was in Anna.
Okay.
Remember Anna?
A mental health.
Yes, and there's a whole story about that in there. And then at the end of her life, there was a home. I don't know what it was called, but it was in Simpson. You know where Simpson is?
Yes, near Vienna.
Yes,
yes. Near Vienna.
And she lived there until she died.
Okay.
And she was wonderful. She seemed to be happy there, and But that's where I interviewed her, where she was living a totally, her life, she made up, the whole life was made up.
So she received help, but by intervention, the family intervened on her
No,
behalf?
yeah, originally they
Okay.
did,
Mhm.
but there was no help to cure that back then. This was, when
Okay.
did she die? I can't remember.
Mm.
Probably uh, 15 years ago, I guess.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I can't remember.
That's
all the
okay.
dates.
No.
But,
I
and
would-
she could get a little mean
Okay.
toward the family and things like
Sure.
that. And,
Sure.
but strangely, I don't know if she knew everybody when they visited her, but every time I visited her until the end, she'd say, "Get Sue."
Oh, okay.
How could that be?
That she knew you.
Yes.
She knew you. She knew you. Wow. Now, you had an uncle, Quentin, who also suffered from.
Yes, he was more
depre-
bipolar, if you're going to
bipolar.
label him. He was
Okay.
bipolar.
Now, was he able to reach out himself for help?
He did have help. He was
Okay.
he was in hospitals also,
Okay.
and I don't know if you're familiar with the bipolar syndrome, but it comes and goes.
Mm.
And people function quite well now.
Okay.
And with schizophrenia also, as long as you take your medicine, you're pretty good. So I don't know what they were giving Sonia. Her name was Sonia.
Mhm.
At Simpson, if they were still medicating her, or I didn't get into that.
Okay.
But Quentin would come and go, and he would have good times, but then the bad times would come, which is why it's bipolar.
Mm.
And he just couldn't handle that anymore.
Was he able to make the call? Was he able to say, "I need help" himself? Or do you know?
I don't know. That they were in Florida,
Okay.
and I was younger.
Yes, and he's another generation away
Yes.
above you. So
Yes.
okay.
I don't think he made the call. From the
Okay.
stories I've been told, a lot of it was actually police involved.
Sure. Well, there's a safety net, but
Mhm.
tell now either for yourself or other family members who've struggled with we'll just call it trauma. Can you tell us a story of yourself or someone else reaching out for help, and how you did it or how they did it, and what the results were?
Just my story that I've already been over. I know my great grandfather, the one that I said was mentally ill. I don't think he ever. Of course, that's so long ago. You don't have the same resources.
No.
But today, what I know about people today,
Okay.
they have resources. If they know there's something wrong, or their wife or their husband knows something wrong, they can go to the hospital. They can get medicine. They can get back on track. It's so different now than it was back then.
Sure.
Today is you can live with it. You can work with it. You can function with it.
Mm-hmm.
I read a lot of books during the research on this.
Okay.
People would write books about their son was mentally ill, and
Yes.
there's a lot of material on this.
Okay.
But that's about all I know.
Okay. I know just from my own experience that, man, it's of course our loved ones that we need to just say, "I am struggling,"
Yes.
and if we can't do that, just knock on the door of the neighbor and say, "I need help." And we all know that our neighbors will help, but we're afraid. I mean, unfortunately, we're so afraid, ashamed, right? But we do. I know that our neighbors will help.
And I have this Mr. Larry Wargel that you met out in the lobby. Is just the most wonderful human being I've ever known in my life.
Great.
Not only is he capable of anything, but his kindness.
Mm.
And if I've ever told him anything that I need, anything that I would like him to do, it's like, it's done.
It's done. Good.
He takes care of me.
Okay.
And he
Good.
covers me, and he warms me, and he just, I don't know what I would do without him. I'm very fortunate. Everybody doesn't have that.
Well, I believe you because we're filming this at the Johnston City Center for Hope and Renewal. And this was my very first visit to the center. And your husband, Larry, opened the door, and I thought he was a staff member here.
Yeah. No.
So, yes, he's proven his
Yes.
character. And he's just, so we do
And
have
he'll
people.
he reaches over and tells me something, Karen, you need to, blah, 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 blah. He'll tell me what I need to do to be nice. I tell everybody, I have to try so hard to be nice, and it's not fair. It just comes to Larry naturally.
Oh, good for him. Good for him. Well, I'm so glad to know about Don't Touch That Box. And I'm glad that symbolically the box has been opened where we're able to talk and share. And I hope many people, many, many, many people will read this and follow those lines. I hope we find Papa's Schnickle's cat. And
I do want to say, because you were talking about
Okay.
the sad things in the box.
Sure.
But there are chapters in here, and because I wanted to contrast that how amazingly they made their life so wonderful, both of them.
Mhm.
And Paul, he made fireworks. Even in the Depression, he made his own fireworks so his kids could have
No
fireworks.
way. No way.
My grandpa read the encyclopedia twice and read constantly, and he knew everything. And they made homemade ice cream, and they just did everything. And he made life wonderful.
So we've got to read this book to read about a world that's almost unimaginable.
Yes.
And we'll find comfort and solace there. Oh, and you're going to be at Andreessen's Cafe signing
September
this
7th,
book? Okay.
from 10 a.m. in the morning to 3 p.m. in the
Okay.
afternoon. It's senior day, senior meal day, of
Wonderful.
course, and Thursday is fried chicken day.
Oh, so eat breakfast and read the book, eat lunch and get an autographed copy of the
Yes.
book, and